Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are continuing our HTLC interview series, and today we have John McDowell. So, John, thank you for agreeing first to be here.
Okay. Hi, Pastor. How are you? And hi, everyone.
I appreciate that. Hey, John, let's start by talking about your history with HTLC. And so, Carlos, tell us about you.
Okay. Well, the good news is that people who were around back then, they don't remember a lot, so I can shape this any way I want to. No, so my parents and I moved here in 1963 when I was 6. Well, actually, I was 5 at the time. I turned 6 in 1963. We moved here then, and we moved into this house that I'm sitting in right now, which you can tell from the light fixtures. Nothing has changed. In I think the fall of '60. We first went to Messiah Lutheran in Redwood City, and then we went to basically, I think when I was about 5th grade, we ended up going to here to Holy Trinity. And I've been going to Holy Trinity on and off ever since. I moved away from the area, for college, and then kept on living in different places, back and forth here for a little bit, but mostly away for about 30 years. And I've been back here about 10 years now again, and here I am. Lots of people know this, but Kathy Brady and Mary Webb and myself were all in the same confirmation class.
Really?
And Dave Pitts was, I think, maybe a year or 2 behind us. I'm not sure exactly, but just a little bit behind us.
Wow, that's really...
Yeah, I know. So it's like, and of course, we were the kids then, and now we're like the old people in the church. It's very odd.
So you moved here, and then you went to college.
Where did you go? Southern California. Pardon me, where did I go? I went to a place called Claremont McKenna College in Southern California.
And what'd you major in?
Well, now they changed the name of the major, but then it was political science and philosophy, government and philosophy.
Got it. And you moved back here when did you say?
Well, so as I think a lot of people may know, I'm currently on the church council, had been previously, and then currently got elected council chair. But I've been on the council when I first moved back here from graduate school. I was elected to the church council too, and that was in when was that? Late 80s, 86, something like that. Yeah.
And so you also went to graduate school. Where'd you go to graduate school at?
University of Virginia.
And what was your graduate work in?
I went to the Darden Business School there. I'd like to point out that the University of Virginia Cavaliers basketball team is now in its 2nd year as the reigning national champions of college basketball.
That's great. And so, okay, so you did business, you did political science. What jobs have you held? Where has that taken you?
Jobs have I held? I've been a dishwasher. I have been a warehouseman in a fireworks warehouse. I've been a messenger, a telemarketer. I have been, so I've done those sorts of things. Let's see, what else have I done? Worked in advertising agencies, worked for in the marketing departments of some corporations, and then ended up on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., worked for a congressman.
What did you do for the congressman?
I worked for George Radonovich from Fresno. And
you're a Republican, Democrat?
In Congress. And then I did the usual thing there. So I ended up working for a think tank, ended up working for a trade association, ended up working back at the federal government for about almost 10 years in the George W. Bush administration. So just things of that nature.
What did you do for the congressman?
Oh, I was the communications director, press secretary, the press person for the congressman. I wrote speeches, wrote op-eds, columns, talked to the press, that sort of thing.
And then what'd you do for the think tank?
I worked for the Progress and Freedom Foundation. And
okay.
Of all things, it was started by a guy I went to college with. So he ended up being he got his doctorate at UVA, actually, at Virginia as well. And this was what did I do there? I did organizational work. I didn't do the thinking part. I did the organizational work. they had scholars and whatnot, and I was more on the organizational side, and again the communication side.
And then you said you were on Capitol Hill too?
Well, for the congressman, yeah.
Okay.
That was for a couple of years, and then for the Small Business Administration, United States Small Business Administration. It's a federal agency, not association. Small Business Administration. Your federal tax dollars at work, and there I was actually the title there was press secretary as well.
So is there any like is there any like YouTube videos of you talking?
I don't think there's any YouTube videos. And of course, in that position, most of the stuff I would have written would have been bylined by someone else. So ghostwriting. So it's really kind of the dirty little secret of politics, but virtually 100%. I mean, I'd say 95 or more % of anything that goes out over a politician's name or they speak has been written by someone else.
That doesn't surprise me.
Every speech, every column, everything, more than likely has been written by someone else. And depending on the principle, it depends upon how much they actually edit and pay attention to what what that is. I mean, and this goes particularly for any president. And I'm not just talking about the current one, I'm talking about anyone. They have back to back meetings, and they'll walk into a meeting. Hey, this is the pork queen from Iowa. You got 3 minutes, and they give him or her remarks, and they're read, and that's it. And that happens all the time. That's the way things work.
That's interesting.
Like I say, so for now this again, I mean, there's a range, right? There's a range, but for sure, major speeches and columns and op-eds and newsletters and all that sort of thing, letters from the congressman, they're all written by someone else, and the congressman may have edited it significantly or may have just signed her name to the bottom, and then that's it.
Have you ever known a congressperson to just trust you implicitly and just go, I'm going to sign my name to whatever you write? Or does that happen?
I think, again, it really depends on the office and depends on the people.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'd never worked for anyone, or maybe it wasn't that good, who just said, "Oh, just go do this." But there are people that comes pretty close to happening. But generally speaking, the principal is going to at least read it first.
Yeah.
Although, again, like with the president, I am certain that the president, when they go, like I say, they go meet the pork queen, or they go have a short meeting with representatives from the tool and die industry, whatever. I mean, that president is handed remarks, and they're lucky to know who they're meeting with, let alone what they're about to say.
Right. That's interesting. Okay, so we talked about your work. You're back now. What are you into right now? What's something interesting about you that like people may not know?
What is interesting about? Okay, so I've inspected prisons and jails from one coast to the other.
Talk to me about that.
Here in San Mateo County, a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago now, I was a member of the San Mateo County Civil Grand Jury. The Civil Grand Jury is a group of citizens in each county in California that investigate effectiveness, efficiency in local government. And it's by law. California is the only state that has these civil grand juries. And the Civil Grand Jury investigates and then makes reports and issues recommendations on how the local agencies can improve. One of the things the Civil Grand Jury is required to do is inspect the jails in their county. So in this case, San Mateo County, we have, of course, the San Mateo County Jail. Let's call it the jail system. We have 2 jails in Redwood City, the new one and the old one. We have the juvenile facility up there at Hillcrest, behind Belmont, San Mateo. We have the county work farm. So we have several locations. Also in San Mateo County, we have the largest jail for the city and county of San Francisco. It's actually in San Mateo County, right next to Skyline College, which few people know about, but it's there. And so we did that one as well. So they went through and looked and learned about what they're doing and tried to get some understanding of how prisoners are being treated, that sort of thing. We did not write any investigative reports on that, although some civil grand juries around the state will, depending on the situation in their county. And then when I was living in Washington, D.C., I was appointed by Mayor Anthony Williams to be on the Corrections Information Council. That's a city commission. I was a city commissioner, and our job was to be the civilian inspectors of the jail and the halfway houses there for the city of Washington, D.C. And then issue reports about how they were not doing in their job of taking care of the prisoners.
The ones that are here around us,
Yeah.
are they private prisons? Are they?
Oh no, no. In the county. So this is just the county, right? So this would just be for our county.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have any private prisons in San Mateo County. We have the county prisons, which is the new one in Redwood City. People may be familiar with, which is just off 101, and the old one, which is right downtown Redwood City, right next to the county buildings there. So those two. There was a separate women's facility in Redwood City as well, but that I believe has now been closed and has been merged into the new jail. Then there's there's the Hillcrest jail, or the juvenile complex there. Back when we were kids, all the bad kids went to Hillcrest, went to juvie and Hillcrest. So it's not called Hillcrest anymore. There's another name for it. I forget. I still call it Hillcrest. But, and that's there right where 92 meets 92 and Ralston meet.
Oh, really?
In Crystal Springs Shopping Center, like right there off to where that intersection is, where 92 and 280 meet, and there's some buildings off to, well, depending on which way you're going and where you are, but sort of on the west side of that intersection, kind of up on the hill. Those are the juvenile facilities. There's a boys facility, a girls facility, and a general facility. And then there's county work farms. So there's out in La Honda, there's a juvenile facility. Those are being closed down. They may both be closed at this point. And there's a sheriff's work farm out in the forest there as well.
And the work farm is like?
Well, in the forest. They were in the forest. They call them county work farm, but really they were in the forest. And then again, the largest jail for the city and county of San Francisco, they have multiple locations, and their largest location is there in, is that Burlingame? No, it's not Burlingame. It's South San Francisco. No, it's Pacifica. I can't, the exact address, I'm not sure technically what cities it's in, but literally it's right next to Skyline College.
And so you've inspected prisons. What are general things that you've noticed about prisons? Like, what are there typical problems? Are there things that people are doing well? Is there stuff that's just like, oh man, this is terrible? Like, you
don't want to be there. Okay. And there's a range of that. All right. So I got a buddy who was locked up in Montgomery County, and he was locked up in their sort of pretrial detention center. It was for low-level offenders. And I mean, I got to go visit him. I could go sit there and talk to him right in there. They had pool table. We played pool. They had ping pong. They had barbecue. I mean, really, so there was that. And some of these older facilities, particularly the jail in Washington, D.C., half of which, by the way, was a private prison, or it was contracted out. It was built by the city. That was crowded and dirty and loud, and and also part of the issue is the people who are in there. So in the jail in Montgomery County, it was like being in jail in San Mateo County. It was a suburb of the big city. And, the criminals weren't as hardened. The criminals weren't. You didn't have those kind of folks in that place, at least in that particular facility that my friend was in. But so it kind of depends on the folks who are in the facilities, and then for sure, now in California and other places, there's been a move towards recognizing that everyone comes back from jail or prison. Almost everyone, like 99.9% of the people come back, and they come back to the communities they're from, and they're going to be your next door neighbor because that's where they're from. And if they are not equipped to reintegrate themselves back into the community, the likelihood of recidivism, which is high, and that means more crime, and that means more victims.
Right.
And so consequently, it really is important for citizens to realize that the best way to keep from having more victims in a county or in a city or wherever in a state is to help those folks coming back from prison reintegrate and not commit more crimes, which means making sure they're able to read, making sure they might have a high school, get a high school diploma, possibly trained in job, in various job activities, those sorts of things, which generally aren't done. I mean, it's surprising. Maybe it's not surprising, but those kinds of things around the country generally aren't done. They're done to a greater extent here in California, but still probably not to the extent they ought to be. And part of that, of course, has to do with the fact that, if you're locked up, particularly in county jail, if you're locked up for maybe, 6 or 8 months, not much can, you're not going to get much job training in 6 to 8 months. It's not happening. It's really going to happen for longer term prisoners.
You brought up reading. How
there's issues with gang issues. There's all kinds of issues, but right. I think the important thing is to recognize that education and some job training and things like that are just critically important for the rest of the people in the community when these folks come back.
And you brought up reading. You've done a lot of volunteer work around reading, right?
Yeah, I most recently, for years, I've been a tutor at Project Read in Redwood City. That's out of the library system there. And I had been, 7, 8 years, a tutor there. Just that I'm not doing it now. It's only been a couple of months that I haven't been doing it.
Yeah.
That's the guy I was tutoring. He got a job at night and there were some other things going on. But so I was tutoring there. Project Read is a great opportunity. It takes everything from kids through adults, and you can tutor folks not just in reading, but in other subjects as well. And so it's a great opportunity to really help kids in our area, particularly Redwood City, which has a little bit different demographic, say, than here in San Carlos. I mean, we have healthy cities tutoring in San Carlos, and I would say it's the kids in Redwood City that probably have a greater need than maybe some people in San Carlos do, but I think the kids in Redwood City have a greater need.
And what got you into helping do that?
I got a pastor story for you. You ready for this pastor story?
Let's hear it.
It's a sneaky pastor story. So we had in my church in Washington, D.C., which, by the way, just we're doing this on a Tuesday, I put in our Facebook group, a video of the pastor from Reformation Lutheran Church in Washington, D.C., leading the United States House on yesterday, in their opening prayer. So you can see that there. So I was at Reformation Lutheran Church in Washington, D.C., and they had a tutoring program that was centered around a local housing project. And I volunteered for that. And so I was just a tutor in this program for couple kids. And actually the kids I was tutoring were actually kids the kid I was tutoring was actually a kid from the congregation himself, and he was not living that project. Well, the person who was sort of managing the whole thing couldn't do it anymore. And there was a meeting was held, and it was at the community center in the local housing project we were working there at. And it was a meeting of the couple parents, pastor, 2 of our pastors, and some of the tutors about what are we going to do about this tutoring project. And there's a whole discussion about, well, people thought we really should continue it somehow. But then there was a question of, well, who was going to continue? Who's going to run it? And so I was sitting here, and the pastor was sitting to my left, the head pastor. We went around, and there was all kinds of, there's a couple parents, 1 or 2 tutors, whatever. And the pastor to my left says, well, let's go around the room and see what people can do. And he went around the room, and each person, wow, I can't do this. I mean, I'm a parent, so I'm not running this, or I'm a tutor, but I work full time, et cetera, et cetera. And it came all the way around. It came to me, and I was working full time too as well. And the pastor turns and looks at me and says, well, John, you're the last person. You're going to be in charge. What? How does this work? So, by the way, for those of you who don't know, that was very similar to the way I became church council president.
This time around, right? Yeah, we did go around the room and everyone's like, yep. And so, John, you're it. Well, God calls in funny ways. So.
I guess so.
And so that's really cool that you do the reading program. You're also involved, or had been involved, because I saw this on Facebook, Toastmasters? Is that,
so,
is that what that's called?
Yes, Toastmasters is it's a community group. but it's not a service organization like Rotary or Lions or that sort of thing. It is it's not a group like the Eagles or maybe the groups like that, which are more of a what are those groups? I can't think of the word I want to call them now, but what those groups are is kind of social groups. And Lions and Kiwanis and that sort of thing are more service organizations. Toastmasters is a group that allows its members to it's focused on its members becoming better at public speaking and leadership, those two roles. And so it allows, and it's a self-paced, supportive program where people can come and basically learn by doing, and through positive support of the other members in their organization, how to get better at public speaking and presentation, and also then leadership in terms of leading Toastmasters and maybe out in the community and that sort of thing. It's great. It's really fun. It just allows you to do pretty well. So in public speaking. So I've enjoyed it. I've done it for years and years and years.
Yeah, that's interesting because I do public speaking a lot, right? But I like to have my comments totally prepared. If somebody asks me to speak extemporaneously, I don't like to do it. And
Right.
So if somebody says, "Hey, pastor, say something," I'm like, "What do you want me to say?" I have to think about it and prepare. So when we were at the council meeting the other night and they're like, "Hey, you should say something," I was like, okay. and that it didn't feel so good exactly what I said, because I have to think about it first. I have to write it down. I have to craft it. But for me, speaking extemporaneously is just not something I like to do.
And that's actually part of the regular Toastmasters meetings are very structured. And part of the regular Toastmasters meeting is in fact a chance to speak extemporaneously every meeting.
Wow.
So that we have something called table topics, and a leader will ask questions around a certain topic. I mean, generally easy ones, not hard ones where you have to really know much to answer it. But maybe questions like describe the best summer fruit or something like that. And then they will ask that question and they'll pick a member of the group to answer, and you have to answer for at least a minute. So you have to actually say something, stand up, say something, and you after 2 minutes you're done. So time to quit talking. Give other people a chance to sit down. And so that is part of the regular structure of a Toastmasters meeting. So you learn over time how to get better at extemporaneous speaking. As an example we like to use is, if you're stuck on the elevator with your boss's boss, and she turns to you and says, "So, what are you working on?" You'll be like, answer the question, right? And so this will help in situations like that, for sure.
Yeah. That's really interesting. John, you are super interesting, man. And you've done a lot, and you've done a lot of work, and I hope people have gotten to know you a little bit better. Let's talk about our church for a minute. What do you love about our church?
What I love about our church, I think the community aspect. I mean, the fact that it's part of San Carlos, and many of our members live in San Carlos, and their kids your kids go to school here, and other kids go to school here, and they've grown up here and live here and work here, and I think that's an important thing.
Yeah. And what is your hope for our congregation into the future?
Yeah. So the reason I'm kind of looking away, I gotta think about this, is that, everyone always says they want a church to grow and become larger. And then there's the idea of, well, is that really the right metric? Are we just about putting, butts in seats like a baseball game? And we kind of are, because it's important, I think, that we do have, butts in seats at the same EIS. Anyway, and so but at the same time, that's maybe not the best metric, because that's more of a sales metric than maybe a spiritual metric. But I'd like to see our congregation continue in a robust manner, whatever that maybe means. So maybe it means growing somewhat. Maybe it means growing a lot. But I certainly think it means having a good core group of members.
Yeah.
And speaking of growing a lot, you can talk to some of our older, longer term members, whether it's Julianne Frederick, or whether it's Lynn or Lillian Pagriba, or even myself, Mary, and Kathy. When we were kids, and you can go back, look, Pastor's a whole closet of church history. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not.
I am, yeah.
So you can go through there and look, and you can see, I mean, the average attendance on Sundays is like, 250 or something. It was huge in our current location.
Yeah.
So, there's room for us to grow and room for us to have, I think, a more robust congregation, which would allow us to do a lot of different things in a lot of different ways and maybe not lean on the same usual suspects over and over again.
Yeah. Can I ask you a theological question? Can I?
Okay, you may have to cut this out. So if people are watching this and it's edited, okay, cut. All right, then we can go on. All right.
What's the gospel to you?
What is the gospel?
What's the good news of Jesus to you?
Yes. So interestingly enough, I'm just going to say that I have just been watching because we're quarantined, of course, a 24-part lecture series from the Great Courses on the meaning of the New Testament. I'm about 2/3 of the way through right now. So obviously the gospel is, I say obviously, but it basically translates into, good news is how it translates. And it's, to me, the gospel is the fact that the kingdom of God is actually here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's at, the kingdom of God is at hand, but it's not out there in the future somewhere.
Right.
Has happened.
Yeah.
And maybe hard to discern at times, but it's here now, and we're the ones that are making it apparent.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I think that's a good message. And I think you're right on point with that.
Now, let me ask you this. Are you going to ask me about my dental health?
I wasn't planning on asking you about your dental health. Oh, that was such a cute interview. I thought it was good to start with Hazel. People would have got a kick out of that. Well, John, thank you so much for
you're welcome.
Allowing me to. Is there anything else that you want to say before we stop our time together?
Well, we're just in a kind of a scary time for some people, and certainly at a time where everything's been uprooted and changed, and I'm putting on my president of the church council hat right now.
Sure.
And we're not having services, and we may not have services for several more weeks, if not a couple of months. That means that our resources that we normally receive, donations that we normally receive each week, have fallen off. And that means that we may be struggling here in the future to make sure that just keeping the lights on, that we actually pay pastor, that we have the ability to do those kinds of things, let alone give benevolences to our local nonprofits, that sort of thing. We're going to be struggling with that. And so we need every member, as many as possible, to, just like you would with your bills, your normal bills at home, either your mortgage or your car insurance or your health insurance or whatever, is to, if you can, get on automatic giving to donate to Holy Trinity based on your pledge. And so that you just automatically every week or every 2 weeks or every month or however you feel it's important, that's automatically donated to Holy Trinity, so that, it doesn't fall between the cracks, you don't forget about it, and that we're able to actually continue to do what we're here to do. That's I think right now, one of the most important things just for our congregation. Several other important things, including caring for our members and things of that nature, but as sort of the organizational aspect of the church, that's just critical right now.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that, John, and thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed. And
all right, you're welcome.
Have a good day.
Okay, well, I'll see you later tonight.